Welcome back to another Pharmacy Republic video. This is number 4 in the hair loss series, and today we're going to look at the history of the development of the idea that DHT plays in hair loss.
The world is full of history.
So now let's have a quick look at the historical development of the link between DHT or dihydrotestosterone and hair loss. So if we go way back to 1942, J.B. Hamilton, noticed that the male hormone was required for baldness. Interesting. I don't know how he did these experiments, but he found that people who were castrated did not become bald unless they were given testosterone. I don't know what the ethics committees were like in 1942. I hope they were pre-existing castrates.
Mother, father, I decided to have myself chemically castrated.
Why the hell would you do that?
But that was the first step on this road to discovering how DHT and hair loss are linked. Then we go to 1968 with John Donald Wilson and Nicholas Buchowski. Now, they produced a classic paper. They were the first to identify the biological significance of formation in DHT in cells which were targets of testosterone. So before this, it was thought that testosterone acts directly on the cells. So they identified an enzyme, which we know to be 5-alpha reductase, within the cells, which converts that testosterone to DHT. And then they did subsequent experiments where they actually find that DHT was localized in the peripheral tissues. Then we go on to 1989 with Griffin and Wilson. So they studied men who had a reduction or an insufficiency of 5-alpha reductase. So they didn't have enough 5-alpha reductase. They had some, but it wasn't quite enough. So what they found was these men, they still had hair under the armpits, they had pubic hair, but it followed more of a female spread rather than the male spread of pubic hair, and they had very little hair growth, and they found that they didn't become bald. Okay, so like we're gradually inching our way closer to the theory that DHT causes hair loss, and this is how science works. It's small steps. Then we go to 1998 and 2003 with Kaufman and Shapiro. They noticed that the 5-alpha reductase inhibitor finasteride, which is a type 2 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, we'll cover this in a bit more detail, which people were taking for, at that time, the finasteride would have been used for benign prostatic hyperplasia. We know that the 5-alpha reductase is localized in the scalp and also in the prostate, and it can cause growth of the prostate. And so initially, the initial licensing for finasteride was for this purpose, BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. And they noticed that with finasteride, there was hair regrowth. So that was with the type 2. It only inhibited one type of the isoenzyme 5-alpha reductase. Fast forward to 2006, and Olsen experimented with dutasteride, which blocked 2 types of the 5-alpha reductase, 2 and 3, and he found hair growth. In fact, he found more hair regrowth than the finasteride, which only blocks one type. Okay, so now we've looked at the historical development, and this just shows you how step by step these theories are made. I mean, I think it was Newton. Newton said, "I can see so far because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." Okay, so we depend on the work that the scientists do before us. We look at their work and we develop these theories. So now we know that DHT is part of a process that is responsible for hair loss. Okay, so now we know about the genetics. Now we know about the hormones. If only it was that simple, because as I've just briefly mentioned, there are different types of 5-alpha reductase. And there are 3 types so far which have been identified: type 1, type 2, type 3. And this is another example of science making it easier for us. We're They're given the titles of type 1, type 2, type 3. It's based on the chronological order in which they were discovered. Now, type 1 isoenzyme of the 5-alpha reductase is found in the skin and the sweat glands. Type 2 is found on the scalp, in the hair follicles, in the seminal vesicles in the testes and the prostate. And type 3 is found in the brain and breast tissue. But it's the type 2 that is more commonly associated with hair loss. Okay, so that's the 5-alpha reductase type 2, which is commonly associated with hair loss. So now we've added another layer onto this, investigating the root causes of hair loss. So we've got the genetics. We now have the hormone DHT, and we've got the types of isoenzymes involved in the different locations of the body. But if only it was that simple, because there's another layer that we can add, which can also influence the hair loss, or plays a role in androgenetic alopecia, and that is sex hormone binding globulin. Now look now at what roles SHBG plays in hair loss. So hopefully that video shed some light on how the history of ideas are developed in science, in particular with the idea that DHT plays an important role in hair loss. In the next video, we're going to look at other factors that can influence hair loss, such as a protein that's found, a glycoprotein that's found in the blood called sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG. This is also bonus material, if you like, because if you're going to get your testosterone levels checked, it's very important that you check for SHBG levels. I'll leave all this for the next video, but if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.